Welcome to the most comprehensive RAG Masterclass on YouTube, where I'm going to take you from beginner to expert. I've sold RAG systems to so many companies. I even flew out to New York to compete in N8N's first ever RAG Agent competition. I'm going to take you from theory to actual business systems that make money. We're going to cover the best RAG systems that are working today and practical builds that, regardless of your experience level, you can get working immediately. There'll be timestamps down below the video, so feel free to look at any section you want to as you go, and definitely bookmark this video so you can come back to it whenever you're going to be building RAG Agent. Now, this RAG Masterclass is going to take you from beginner to expert. Now, RAG is the most profitable AI skill that you can learn in 2026. The annual global AI market is projected to hit $1.8 trillion by 2030, according to PwC. Now, businesses need AI systems to use their data, and you can RAG any data you can imagine: PDFs, documents, contracts, Excel spreadsheets, phone conversations, the internet, books, YouTube, podcasts, you literally name it, you can RAG it. People often say, Jack, you'll RAG anything, and I can't deny those allegations. But let me give you a thought experiment. You just hired the world's smartest assistant, and we're pretty happy about that because this is good news, but there's a catch. So whilst he's got a very high IQ and is really helpful, they're not able to retain any of the information that we actually gave it, and they're lying about it. So we don't know when they're lying and when they're actually retrieving. Now, this is what we call the memory problem. And hallucinations aren't just inconvenient for certain sectors and businesses, healthcare, medical, and anyone else. They can be very costly because you're giving the wrong information to people, or straight out illegal if it gives or creates false information. It's just simply not true. And whatever business you're in, you need accuracy. Now, RAG is the strongest defense that we have to this, and every business needs it. Whether you are a significantly large business that has turnovers of 8, 9, 10 figures, or you're smaller, RAG has a place to help every business. I'm going to cover exactly what RAG is shortly, but I have to explain to you the context why we're even talking about this today. And it's cheaper than fine-tuning. And if you don't know, fine-tuning is basically when you train a model on specific data, and it can cost between $5,000 to $50,000 plus, depending on lots of variables. RAG is way more accessible and way cheaper to train that information on for your particular company. Almost anything you do with AI is going to involve the data, and RAG is at the center of that data. It's one framework, almost infinite applications. For example, real estate operations, education, tracking, retrieving data, anything you could possibly imagine, RAG can be involved in some shape or form. Now, for business owners, the AI native businesses of the future in 2026 and beyond are the ones that can fundamentally control their data and have best access and context with that data. And RAG is the operating system for that data. And it saves you hundreds of hours and can even unlock new product categories for you that just quite simply did not exist before. And new product categories means new revenue streams. For agencies, RAG systems sell between $5,000 to $50,000 plus. It's my agency's most frequent request, and I've sold many of these myself, and also taught hundreds of other people to learn how to build AI and actually monetize and leverage it. RAG is the most profitable skill to learn in 2026. And in this video, I'm going to show you quick 1-minute RAG systems you can build all the way to very complex RAG systems, so you have a full comprehensive knowledge, the kind of 20% of information that's going to give you the 80% of the results. And I'm also going to include what I call the 3 RAG Infinity Stones, which is in part inspired by the fact I've got this beautiful, huge Thanos gauntlet that I got for a birthday a couple of years ago. That if you crack these 3 elements of RAG, it will put you in the top 1% of all RAG builders. Now, to build RAG systems that are actually profitable and best in class, you've got to have a great understanding of what it is. So in really simple terms, what is RAG? RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. It is, in really simple terms, an AI that remembers and learns and responds smarter. Essentially, all it does when you ask it a question is it retrieves information, it augments that information, and then it generates it to give a better response. But make it sound a little bit simpler. Let's imagine that we've hired this beautiful 800 IQ librarian. Really great for our library, right? Really freaking awesome. We can ask it many questions about the books. But the problem is, despite this wealth of knowledge that it's got, he forgets oftentimes where the books are. He doesn't understand where the information is. RAG is kind of like an indexing card that lets him know where all the information is on the bookshelf. So for example, if we ask it a question about our company's HR policy, or what was it that Mrs. Higgins said on the 17th of October, for example, he'll say, great, I know exactly where that information is, and he'll simply reach over to the right shelf and grab for us the golden book that has that information. Without the indexing card, it will not be able to do this. Now, there's one key piece of information that's worth calling out here, which is why we need RAG anyway, and why can't we just ask language models? So essentially what happens is, with any model you've got, it's got what is known as a context window, okay? So you may or may not know this, but when you're actually using an AI chatbot like Gemini, like ChatGPT, what effectively happens is that the whole conversation is pasted into the chat every single time you have it. So if I say, hey, how's it going? And it says, I'm great, thank you, how are you? And then I say, what's the capital of Denmark? The entire conversation is consistently filtered through, which is fine. But what happens, it's got a limited context window, which is why if you're using these models, you may ask it a question and it's like, hey, I don't actually remember the answer. So Gemini, for example, which is Google's model, has 1 million token context window, which means it can quote unquote remember things up to 1 million tokens. So in the early days, people used to just give it loads of context. But the problem is when you want to retrieve that information reliably and accurately and cite things, or you want more information than 1 million tokens, context is no longer sufficient. Even though that over time, models are getting better at context, it's not great because we want it to be accurate and we don't know when the AIs hallucinate. That's the problem. It's your confidence in what it's saying. So if I were to show you practically, what does it look like in reality? So this is an example in N8N. N8N is a no-code platform, and it just lets us connect things to other things. My last business, for example, the startup that I sold, we built in a no-code platform initially. So I know a lot about these things. So if you look over here, effectively what happens is we have an agent, and we'll ask this agent questions here with this chat window. And what the agent can do is reach over to its RAG database over here to retrieve information. So to give you just a little bit of technical background before I show you by analogy, let's say that we have an infinite bookcase. And yes, this artwork is beautiful. We have an infinite bookcase, okay? Now, effectively what happens is when we vectorize something, effectively what we do is we have a piece of information. Let's just call it, I don't know, the Harry Potter books, okay? And we've got our favorite book over here. What happens when you vectorize this information is that the AI will actually chop it into chunks. So for example, it will chop it into chunks of 10 pages like this. And it does this throughout the entire book. So there's 10 pages, there's 10 pages, blah, 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 all the way down. And then what it does is takes each of those 10 pages and puts it in the bookshelf. So this would be, bookshelf 1, bookshelf 2, blah, 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 all the way through. But it doesn't put it as text. What the AI actually does is it converts that information into what we call it, vectorizes it, and it gives it a really, 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 really long number that goes on and on and on and on all the way through. And we call this the embedding. And that process is called, basically, you have an embedding model that does that. So that the data, that kind of 10 pages of information, has a kind of unique code identifier. Then what happens is it's all stored in this thing. And so let's just say these 10 pages are about why Harry Potter, when he gets his invisibility quote, you can tell I haven't seen Harry Potter in ages. When we then ask a question, it uses the same embedding model to turn that question into this kind of like a number that's similar. And then it will pull back the most relevant sections for us. Let me give you this by a bit of an analogy, okay? So let's just say that we have an office, for example, and we have somebody here who runs the office. In this instance, it's you. And we have a wonderful and helpful secretary. And what she does is takes all the company information and she puts it into this bookcase in exactly the same print. Okay, so we've got a book for HR policies, a book for our standard operating procedures of businesses, whatever the specifics are. Okay, and then effectively what we do is we can go ahead and she goes over for us, and when we ask her a question like, hey, what's our policy on recruitment? Okay, I want to hire somebody. Hey, what's our policy on recruitment? What she does is she simply shoots over, she goes to the bookcase and grabs the most relevant books on recruitment and brings them back. That's effectively all that RAG is. And to show what that looks like in practice, again, we would have over here the office, which is our guy, which is in this case, the agent who we give instructions to. Then we'd have the actual knowledge base itself, which is where we're storing things, the vectorization of the information. And then finally, we have the actual memory where we access that thing. So that is pretty much like a very kind of like simplistic overview of what RAG is and why it's so freaking important. But I want to really drill down on what you can RAG. And like I say, it's been said that you can RAG pretty much anything, any kind of information you could possibly imagine. Literally, PDFs are a big one, Word docs, databases. I'm going to show you some really interesting insights on databases that you may not have seen anywhere else on YouTube about how do I get big data sets that I can ask questions about. And not only questions like, what happened with account 747, you can also ask questions relationally, which means that we can understand the relationship between the data. So if, say, for example, you've got a community and you have churn and you have sales and you have people, you can actually ask it questions about things like trends. You can't do that with traditional RAG. So I'm going to show you some really exciting stuff in this video. You can do things about Zoom. So let's say you and I are on a call together and we're selling to somebody, or maybe one of our clients, and we want to just automatically capture a gold mine of information. We can do emails, books, literally websites, anything that exists on the internet, ever. Any article, any website you can imagine, we can essentially scrape that. YouTube videos, social stuff. So if you want to grow your social media kick-ass, we can effectively RAG anything. Now I'm going to show you 2 agents that you can build just to get used to what RAG looks like in under a minute to get started. The first of which is going to be ElevenLabs, which is an incredible text-to-speech technology platform, and it does so much stuff for this. So we're actually going to be able to hear it and ask it questions. So if you use ElevenLabs, come over. If you go into agents on the left-hand side, and let's say we want to create a brand new agent, just for the sake of it, I'm going to click on a business agent like this. I'm going to say, hey, let's just say it's finance and banking, and we want it to do customer support. Really, really cool. And we'll call this one Dr. Help. Okay. And we can give it a website, and this will help us personalize it. So say, for example, that we have a website of, I don't know, let's go for Monzo's website, which is like a bank in the UK. We come down here, we can simply come over and grab that information. And you're going to see just how easy it is to create these RAG things. Main goal is help concepts. That's fine. And then click on create a agent. You can make it text only or audio, really straightforward. And this is something you can easily slot into any website that you want to. Now, this is really cool. Of course, we can go down and pick languages and how it sounds, but I just want to give you a really simple view of this. So we've got a cool system prompt here you can give it. But if I just come down and show you one really simple thing, knowledge base, add document, I can type in a URL, I can add files, or I can create text. So if I click on add files here, for example, and upload something. So I downloaded an insurance policy from Lexus. Let me just upload that real quick. I've selected it. I click on add file. Equally, I could give it any information about a website if I wanted to. It doesn't really matter. You can just manually upload it. I'm going to show you ways how you kind of expedite this and take this to another level. And again, add another document. Do you want to add a website? Let's add in, this website. Why not? And you can just very quickly, very simply just add in all this stuff, websites, documents, files. Doesn't really make a difference. And then we can come over and we can simply save this and then test the agent immediately. Obviously, there's a million things you can do. I've got videos on my channel if you'd love to learn about voice technology just like this. Excellent. Now we want to pick the voice. And if you're wondering why is my shirt changed, when I recorded this, the audio was really bad. So I didn't want to get bad audio, so I am redoing this entire thing. Now in the agent section, we can pick voice. I've chosen Archer here because he's got a beautiful English voice.
It's not about what we have or what...
Beautiful. It's fantastic. So what we can do is simply test the agent if you want to. Now the cool thing about ElevenLabs is we can build workflows. We can connect this to websites. We can pretty much do anything we want to this technology, and it's a full RAG system. So we click on test AI agent. We can click on this to chat with it. Come down here and we can ask it some kind of random question like, hey, could you give me an example from the insurance document, something that is non-obvious? Bam. And if you want to be using my text-to-speech, it's my brand new startup, Glido. It's in beta right now. I'll put a link down below if you want to apply and join the waitlist. So we push this one out here because dude, text-to-speech is so cool. It's actually the only thing that I've ever used that saved me like an hour a day. It's so freaking cool. Hello, I can certainly do that. I can give an example and you can have a conversation with the entire document like that as you go down and go specifics. You can also have a conversation with it if you want to by clicking test AI agent and then just calling the agent like so. We just validate the Mac that we're using.
Hi, I'm Marge, your finance guide. I can explain.
And then you can essentially have a conversation with it just like that. We've got our first RAG system nailed down. Now the second one that I want to show you is this beautiful Google LLM notebook. It's called Notebook LLM. It's incredible. Click on try Notebook LM. And when you open up, you can effectively get any data sources you want. So if I create a brand new notebook, let's say that you've got a video of mine and you think, Jack, I love the video. I want to study it. I want to learn more specifics. I want to chat to your video. What you can do is come over to the Joe YouTube channel. We can find any video we like. So let's just say that we go with this full AI business course, for instance. We copy the clean link. You come over to this and you can click on YouTube and paste it in. And then what you can also do with this is add any source material you want to, like ultimate YouTube videos or any document from your Google Drive or website. So click on website, for example. Let's say that I want to know more about ElevenLabs.io, right? I can come back over here and you basically just keep on posting as many different websites as you want to that you want to chat with, that you don't have time. Like, this is profoundly powerful, guys. It's insane. It's one of the most OP tools that is very simple to use. And then you can simply ask it questions like, what did Jack say the best way was to get your very first client? Bam. Simple question like that, it goes in, and then what will happen is we can ask any single question. Again, look at this text-to-speech, saving us so much time. I freaking love it. And then what we can do here is then actually go then and create full podcast off the back of it. So recommended strategy, goal of resonance, free offer, value exchange, all this beautiful stuff. Now what we can do is get an audio overview. We'll click on that button, and then what that will do is turn all our resources into a podcast. What this will do is accelerate your rate of learning, but it's a profoundly simple way for you to upload documents, websites, YouTube videos to a point where you can RAG essentially anything. This is an excellent personal use case that will just help you completely crush it. Now, the third thing I want to show you here is going to be in ChatGPT, the third agent, which is a bit of a bonus agent in a way because this recently changed. So what you're going to do actually is head over to platform.openai.com. And I'm going to show you this brand new system they've got here, okay? So if you come on the left-hand side here, we've got this thing called agents. You've probably seen them recently about building agents, and click on Agent Builder. And what this lets you do is effectively build agents and do RAG systems. So if I click on create a new workflow, for example, we've got start, we've got my agent. Now in the right-hand side here, you can come downstairs, click on tools, click on file search, and then literally upload anything that you want to. So I've just chosen to upload a RAG query rewriter, basically just something about how to make better prompts, and you'll see this later in the video, and I've attached that. Now what's really cool here is you can customize the chunk size and overlap. I'll get into that later in the video, but effectively add all the information that you want to. What is really cool with this one though, is we can add in guardrails. Cool, so guys, I've added in this guardrail section, and what you can do here, which is really decent, is come down here to, you got moderation, jailbreak, etc. You can click on this, which is personal identifiable information, and you can select any unique information like national insurance number, UK NHS number, all these beautiful things, and completely remove it, which basically means that if you've got this as a chatbot or you're giving it to clients and you want to have an agent conversation and they give you some personal data, none of that will come through to your system. And obviously you can preview this and just have conversations like, hey, what is, I don't know, something like, what is the fundamental purpose of a RAG query rewriter? Ask it any kind of question, and literally just like that, you can have full conversations, and you can deploy this into your website and do different things like this. So you see this one this has failed because it's detected something wrong with that. But if I actually come off this, come over here to these guard rerails, and let's just delete that, bring it over. Now if I preview this and say something like, give me an example of a RAG query rewriting agent, something like this, we're going to post this one in, and then you'll see the agent will actually go ahead and check its database of knowledge to make to do that. The guardrails can be a little bit strict, a little bit overpowered, so you can select all the things that you don't want to do and make it as specific as you would like. Beautiful. Now we're going to build one of these RAG systems in NA10. So we're going to come over to NA10 and begin with this one. So the first thing we want to do is get your data. So let's say this is a really simple way to get any data into any vector database and ask questions. The first thing we do is come down here. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to search for form. Now, NA10 has a feature where you can pretty much create a form within the scenario. So I'm going to come down here and I'll just say, hey, this is the form name. Form description is simply upload your files. Come down to form elements. Come here and we'll call this one files. Okay. And then element type is very simply file. And then that is literally it. And then what we can do with this, guys, is upload as many files as we'd like to RAG. And then if you want to do databases, you want to have huge databases and ask you questions, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that in this video because it's slightly different. And it's, again, I'm going to cover absolutely everything you ever need. Now we've got the file. The next thing that we need to do here is get the vectorization model, right? So to do that, we're going to use something called Pinecone. Now, Pinecone is really, really cool. Effectively, you're going to come over here and create an account if you haven't done so already. When you've done that, you're going to see a page that looks a little bit something like this. Now, remember in our analogy, guys, that we have over here D for the data. And then over here, we have our gigantic bookshelf, which is where all this data is going. And effectively, all that Pinecone is doing is sitting in the middle and being, okay, in our analogy, our secretary, right? Who's taking the information from over here and bringing it over here. So this is the world's best Pinecone that we've ever seen. As you can see, it looks a little bit something like this. And essentially what Pinecone will do is take the data, it will vectorize it, so give it loads of crazy numbers, and then store it in the data. And then in the future, we want to ask questions, Pinecone can come over to the data and bring it back over here to the user. That's the TLDR of it. But practically speaking, we learn at pinecone.com. You can create 2 scenarios completely for free. Come down to create index. Now this, okay, over here, you see lots of, these are called embedding models. When you hear embedding models, that's just a process of turning data into a vectorized store, into a number. Now, if I show you here, over here, we had our beautiful assistant, right? Think of this as having a level 1 assistant, but they actually go all the way up to level 10. I'm going to touch on that later. For the time being, we're just going to pick over here, text embedding 3 small. Okay, this is the model that's going to create codes for us, right? And you come down here to dimensions and just click 1536. We need to give it a name. Since I'm drinking beautiful coffee now, we've got this one from the fantastic Coffee Planet. We're going to call this one Planet, like that. And all you're going to do is create index, like 2 clicks, we're ready to go. Now, we come back over to NA10 and we need to add in the assistant. So we come here, we're going to go for Pinecone, like so. Click on Pinecone Vector Store and click on Add Documents to Vector Store. Now, we want to connect it to Pinecone. So to do that, you click on this little arrow. You're going to come down here to create a new connection, which I think you can do by here, create new credential. Come over to Pinecone, come down here on the left, click on API keys. Click on create a brand new API key and call this one API key, something like that, or whatever you want to call it, blah, blah, blah. Get that information and then just copy it. You come back over, you paste that in there, click save, and then you're officially ready to rock and roll. Now, when we click on Pinecone index, it will show us a couple of examples. There we go. We've got the planet. Fantastic. Embedding batch size, you don't need to worry about right now. Again, I'm showing you a very simple version, and we're going to build on this throughout the video as we go. Now, we need to pick the embedding model, which is exactly the same that we chose on Pinecone. So we come down here, we're going to go for the beautiful OpenAI, which is right here. And once again, if you don't have the API key, platform.openai.com, grab it, bring it over. Exact same process I just showed you. Add options. Text embedding 3 small is exactly the one, and then we're good to go. And then we just do this document thing, which is basically saying, Jack, you've given me the information. So come down here, click on default data loader. Now again, we can get more complicated, but you don't need to. We have this data type. It's basically saying, Jack, are you giving me a document or are you giving me text? If it's a document, we click binary. If it's JSON, we just click JSON. Now the cool thing is it will kind of do all the hard work finding the document. If it's a PDF, whatever it is, it does all that stuff for us. Really, really cool. Text splitting is simple for now. If it's simple, it's every 1,000 characters with a 200 character overlap. So what does that actually mean? Well, I'll show you right here. I think I did a little analogy. You know, I talked about we have a Harry Potter book. Every 1,000 characters, it cuts off and begins the next 1,000. But we have this thing here, which is the overlap, and we call this overlap. So the last 200 characters will also be included in the next one. And so we have this kind of over section so that we can kind of pull context and we don't lose anything. Because what if the last sentence of this one here, right, wasn't included here? There was no overlap, but you'd only really get that context if you could see it in its full sentence. So this is what that helps us to avoid by having an overlap. All this to say, we're just going to keep it simple for this one and leave it right there. And guys, that's literally it. So let's do this one together. Click on execute scenario like so. This pops up. We're going to upload a file together. I've uploaded our huge, gigantic system with lots of insurance stuff, and then we click on submit. Once that's done, we come back to the form and you'll see this working. We like the circles. Circles is good. Circle means that it's vectorizing for us. It's doing all the embeddings, which is ace, and it's complete shut. If we head over now to Pinecone, guys, we go to the database, we should see this information. And let's have a look at it. And you can see it is now starting to appear. And it has taken our big insurance document into 119 records. So if I click on one as a for instance, and you can see how it's given us, it's automatically pulled out all of this metadata. What is the name of it? What is this? What is that? And then we've got the text here that you can see that it's added it, which is cool. You've just vectorized your first document. Congratulations. Now, the reason you would use this instead of like a standalone form is here, we can do anything. We can connect it to any website, any database, any contact form, you name it, we can literally do it. Now, what we want to do is, well, we've created it, but we want to ask it questions, right? Maybe you want to give that to a client. Maybe you want to give it to your team, whatever it is. So what we're going to do, first of all, is come down here to chat, trigger, and I'm going to show you some of the cool stuff we can do. But effectively, we want to ask it questions. So we come here, we click on AI agent, like so. Beautiful. Now, when you build an AI agent, we specify where's the information coming from. It's just node below, which is fine. But we want to come down here and give it a system message, which is basically its call instruction. So I'm going to say something like, hey, answer questions by using the insurance vector store. That's it. Okay, obviously we get more complicated, but this is just to show you, okay? Now, chat model, come down here. We're going to go for OpenAI, which is fantastic. GPT 4.1 mini is okay for this one. Memory is just short-term memory in NA10. So this is how this agent remembering things. I can show you some bigger, more impressive memory in a little while, but fundamentally that's the most important thing. And then we'll just say, I want you to have a context conversation of 50. And then we give it the tool, which is exactly the same as the last one. So we come down to Pinecone vector store. Now again, look at this. All we do is pick the same thing. So we had Planet is our vector store, right, for the insurance documents. And we say something like information about insurance documents. Cool. Then you have this thing here called limit, which is how many segments do you want me to bring back? General rule of thumb. If it's a question about concepts, so say, for example, you had Alex Hermosi's $100 million leads and you wanted to do more conceptual stuff, I'm okay with it bringing back more information. If I want it to really get me the limited, most accurate things, you'd bias towards having this lower. I'm going to go for 5 on this one, but again, I'm going to get into more detail about these settings with the video. This is just simple, and we can include the metadata for this one. It's okay. Very simple. And then we want an embeddings model. Little quick hack you can do very easily is just come down to this embedding model here, click on it. We can just simply duplicate him, bring him over, plug him in, and then we're good to go. Now, let's ask a question. So if I said something like, let's refresh this here. All right, what can you tell me about, I don't know, theft in my policy? Okay, dead, freaking simple. Ask the question. Now you can see the agent's thinking, and you'll see the Pinecone vector store start to turn, which is cool. And you're talking about these vectors, guys. You can see this is the query that it sent, theft coverage, and this is the response it got. But look at this. Your policy covers theft under Section 2 fire and theft. The car suffers loss or damage, blah, blah, blah. And guys, just like that, you've officially created your first RAG agent. Congratulations. Grab a sip of coffee on JR for that. That's really freaking cool. So that's basically it. And with this on-form document, guys, you can upload as many documents as you want to. And once you get it into these platforms, you can effectively do anything you want to. And of course, guys, you can build the exact same thing at meg.com, and I'll put this blueprint down below for you so you can copy it step by step. I will say that it is a lot easier to build this into NA10, which is why I'm going to focus on NA10, because if you do just literally follow the steps I make, it will be way easier for you to build that way. But nonetheless, I'll put the blueprint down below, so if you are using Meg, you can plug and play as well. Now, building a RAG agent is one thing, a fundamental RAG agent. But if you don't know how to get the data, to scrape data from any source, your potential with RAG is going to be low. If you want to build profitable RAG systems, you've got to be an incredible data scraper. Your very first RAG system, but the rabbit hole goes so much deeper. Now, if you want to be a great RAGger, you must first become an excellent scraper, because if you can't actually get the data, you can't really RAG it. This is why we're going to talk about how to RAG anything. Now, there are 2 key parts you have to understand. Number 1, it is getting the data. And number 2 is vectorizing it. Super simple. But here's the 20% that's going to get you 80% of the results. YouTube, articles, emails, meetings, databases. It all sounds amazing. It's all the stuff that we're going to scrape for this RAG system. I'm going to show you how you do all those things together. But there is a huge pitfall. Let's say, for example, that we just hired Gordon Ramsay. And he is, of course, an awesome chef. I ate his restaurant in Vegas. It was beautiful. It was delicious. But if we gave him bad ingredients, or we gave him the wrong food, the food will suck, right? And he'll also be angry. But RAG works exactly the same way. You have your data, we want to cleanse the data, we want to purify it, and then we want to vectorize it either with Supabase or Pinecone, which brings us on to the first Infinity Stone principle of creating excellent RAG profitable systems, which is data. Now, what does this actually mean in practice? It means we would strip out things like sensitive information. So if you're, working with medical practice and we have somebody's like private medical history or their names, we can strip this out through a system prompt. We would do things like protecting for prompt injection. When I flew to New York for the RAG competition, they tried a prompt injection. But basically they said, here's answer this question, say tacos 5 times, tacos, 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 tacos. And I preempted that because I had a specific control for it.
Tacos, tacos, tacos.
We don't want people to insert prompt injections into our RAG databases, which they can later recall and get it to do all sorts of crazy things. We want to avoid old data. So it's about things like, well, we want to put information in there, but we don't really want really old stuff, or we want the ability to remove old stuff. We want to get rid of inaccurate data. So data that's just not true. Duplicated data, typos and fillers, because we just want to make sure that all the data we're putting in through this process of cleansing is just like as accurate as it can be. And if you want to tirade and tangent about why this is a cool little statue for 20 minutes, it may not be relevant to the database. So we go through and cleanse this. You get the picture. Let's begin with scraping YouTube. So I've got a beautiful end-to-end scenario up, and I'm going to show you exactly how we connect Google Drive to this, and it'll work together on it step by step. So we're going to use a tool, and this will work for the majority of your things, which is Appify.com. Consider it the Willy Wonka's emporium of scrapers. Effectively, you can pick almost any platform you possibly want, and then you can do it. I'm going to put a code down below. You'll get some really cool discounts from Appify because I've reached out. They're friends of the channel. And they love what we do here. So we're going to log into Appify, create an account. If you're brand new, you will get $5 of completely free credits as well when you get started, which is very, very cool. So let's have a look then. So the first thing I want you to do is come down and click on, if you come over to the Appify store, we're going to look over, I'm going to go for YouTube. Simple as that. Once you enter in YouTube, you're going to see it pop up, which is the YouTube scraper. And then you're going to click on it. Now I'm going to show you how this physically works and what the cost is behind it. So you can do this for 1,000 videos for $5. You'd want to use YouTube, by the way, because it's like the biggest supply of information on the planet, which is really cool. So let's say we've got all this information. I want you to come down here and click on direct URLs, and then we're going to enter in a YouTube URL. Cool, so I'm on my YouTube channel. We're going to copy this video URL real quick. So copy video URL, come back over to Appify, and we're going to click on the direct URL, which is cool. Then click on download YouTube transcript, and we download the subtitles and save subtitles to key value store. That's absolutely fine. And as you can see, there's loads of filters and things that we can do. Now, whenever you scrape from a website like Appify, my recommendation to you is that we firstly get it working in the platform. And then once it's working in the platform, we then bring it over to N8N to do that. So all I'm going to do here is click save and start, for example. This then fires up, which is now starting the run, which is excellent. And then we're able to see the actual transcript that lands within Appify. And just like that, guys, we have all of this beautiful data. So I can represent this as a JSON, for example, and we see all the information. So we've got the title, the ID, the URL, how many likes it got, the date it was on, the channel URL, all this beautiful stuff. And then I can see all fields here. And then this will show me the entire transcript with timestamps. How freaking cool is that? Of course, you can remove timestamps if you want to in the settings. So this is really cool. So let's go back over to the YouTube scraper. Now, once you played around with the settings, and you've got the thing that you want. And by the way, you can also just download it based on a search term. So I could say, search for the word RAG and then download the last 10 videos. You can do like a million different things. You can do date ranges. You can even do channel URLs within the last X number of days, which is pretty freaking cool. So let's say that we want to scrape my channel. I'm going to grab my URL. I'm going to come over to the scraper and I'm going to come down and let's have a quick look. So we're going to go relative, and I'm going to say, I want this to scrape it every 7 days, which is cool. And then we're going to go down and add my channel in there. So let's bring this now into N8N. So all you do is you come over to JSON and you can see you've got all this JSON here. And effectively, we're just going to come ahead and copy that. What we want to do is basically bring this and import it into our N8N scenario. So you click on API over here and you click on API endpoints. And then what I personally like to do with APIs like this, guys, is I basically just copy all of the information. I head over to ChatGPT. And I give it a prompt, guys, like based on this info, give me a call request to run asynchronously so that I can request information, it will retrieve it and send the output as part of one module. This is using Appify and N8N. And they just post all of that information in there, which is cool. And then we'll get what is known as a call request from ChatGPT, which is great. And then we can bring it in. So the way this would work is we would come down to add first step and we would click on this button over here and we'd go for HTTP request. And I actually came over to Claude because ChatGPT was taking ages. We come back over here, we paste this one in and then we can import. And as you can see, we've got all this beautiful data. Now what we need to do is just fill some of the stuff in. And by the way, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to give you this blueprint down here, which is a YouTube competitive scraper. So you can just download this and plug and play if you want to download it from several different YouTube channels. I just want to show you how this works. And then you can just install this blueprint to kick some butt. So let's come back over to the thing here. Now we need an API token. So we're just going to shoot back over to Appify. We are going to go over down here to Appify. Let's have a quick look at where we are. I believe it is in the settings, then API and integrations. And then you have your token here where you can generate a new one. You just simply copy that and you come back over to your scenario. Then when it says Appify token, you just simply paste it in there. And then in here, guys, we're just going to come and replace this with URL that appears when we're on your YouTube channel, which of course is right there at the top, which is really cool. So then we come back and then that's done. Max results, I'm just going to set to 5 for a moment, come off this. And then what we can do is simply execute the request like so. And just like that, we've got 5 results, which is great. You can click on this and take a look. And we have all of the beautiful information, channel description, all this beautiful IDs, loads and loads and loads of really cool things. And then we have lots of information that we can just use and leverage whatever we like. And then guys, what we would need to do is come back over to Apify, copy the JSON that we're happy with. You come back over, put it in, and then when it executes, it will actually download all of the information for us. And then we've got the data. What we're going to do now is simply cleanse that data. So what we're going to do is literally click on a brand new module. We're going to add in an AI chain. The reason, by the way, I use the agent even without its agent functionality. So you don't need an agent if it doesn't have tools, but it's my experience in N8N that actually using the agent feature is just way quicker. So let me just come down and give them a model, just for argument's sake, let's go for OpenAI. Little hack, by the way, if you want free models, you can use OpenRouter. They have loads of free stuff, so it's like literally zero cost with it. But we're going to use the beautiful OpenAI for this one. Okay, he's locked and loaded, memory, no need to do that, and we can just keep him like this. So then let's say, for example, we wanted to give him some information. So let's go down onto, instead of connect to chat trigger node, go for define below. And then we want to come down and we've got the text there in it, and then we've got the description links, we've got loads of stuff. So let's find out where all the information is that we got. Okay, and here we have all of this information here. What I want to do basically is just cleanse this information. So what I'm going to do is come here, for example, and I'm going to go down for a code node, which is cool, which is kind of like the WD-40, the do anything you want to in N8N node. I'm just going to strip this out. So within N8N, we're going to click on the agent. And what I want to do is give it this prompt, which of course is the big and beautiful SRT here. All right, awesome. Then guys, what I want to do is come down to add options, click on system message, and we're going to give it this following prompt here, okay? It's essentially this. So you're a transcript cleansing specialist optimized for RAG. Now, this is really key, your cleansing process, because remember, garbage in equals garbage out. So remove filler words and verbal tics, because things like what, who, now, it doesn't really matter without obviously altering the context. Remove non-content elements. So you can even include in that stuff like, hey, subscribe to the channel or do this or do that. So we're not adding kind of false data to our system. Transcription errors. So a good example is like N8N, and it comes off as like a weird number instead, right? Because remember, it's just transcribing based on the voice. So we can actually have the AI translate that. So if you've got like a funky business name, this is a really cool process for you, because if I ask a question about it with the correct spelling, and you've actually used video content, it's not going to know like what the thing is. That's why this cleansing process is so important, and nobody's telling you about this. But obviously I'm telling you right now, this is really freaking important if you want to be in the top 1% of RAG. And let's be honest, guys, that's why we're here to kick ass, right? Preserve important elements, optimize for RAG, output clean, readable text, organized by target segments. Cool. So when you come off this, that's literally all we do. And then all we're going to freaking do, guys, I'm going to pin this data, which in N8N just means that we're locking the data, don't need to rerun it. One of the reasons why it makes it easier in N8N. And then we execute the workflow like this. And then we have the agent doing its magic, which is beautiful. And once that's done, we can then start to vectorize it in it. Now, I'm going to show you a secondary place where we can vectorize it called Supabase. Now, Supabase and Pinecone are two different secretaries, not even secretaries. Think of them as like recruitment agencies, okay? And they both have their pluses and their minuses. And to be completely honest with you guys, the best system can leverage both of them for different reasons. They're just like different filing cabinets, basically. One is green and one is black. So what you do is you're going to head over to Supabase. I want you to create an account or sign in. It's free to do. And then once you're in, you're going to be prompted to create a project, which you can do down here and basically give it a project name, get your database password. And I want you to save that for a moment and then create a new project. And then you'll see something that looks a little bit like this. So when you click on your own individual project, this is one that I was playing around with earlier and is very, very cool. Now, don't look at this and be intimidated. Honestly, once you've seen this a couple of times, you'll be like, Jack, it's like looking like the back of my hand. I absolutely freaking love this platform. So what happens? This is now completed. And as you can see, we've got all of this stuff, which is now cleansed and makes a lot more sense, which is really cool. And whilst that's creating the background, one of the things we'll notice in this cleansing process is that the output is actually significantly shorter than the big video. And one of the reasons for that is because this video is like over 2 hours long. So the AI model summarization does well with shorter text, but it runs into a problem if it's really long. So the AI is doing something what we call probabilistic, which is we could ask it 10 times, get 10 different responses, but we typically want more control. So a better way to do this is actually to add in a code node, which is also known as WD-40 or the will do anything you want thing. And what we can actually do with this is specify certain things that we don't want to include. So for example, you could say, I don't want any names in it. I don't want any filler words like ah, ooh, or I want any mention of XYZ completely removed. You can head over to a platform like Claude ChatGPT and basically just say, hey, write me a JavaScript function that will remove these following things from my transcript. And you'll get something that looks just like this. And you can basically copy it, come over to N8N, click on your code in JavaScript, come up here, enter, and then you can execute the step. And effectively what it will do is just automatically cleanse it. Now, every RAG project you have might be different. This just lets you do that. And what's really cool here is we absolutely have everything that we requested and gave it in full detail without it. If you were to give ChatGPT a 2-hour, 40-minute video, the reason we do RAG is it wouldn't know the context. Then we've got that stuff. We can actually physically vectorize it and kick some butt. So we've got this information is how do we actually connect it to Supabase? So to do that, what we're going to do is bring this guy out of here for a moment. I'm going to pin this information and we're going to click on this. I'm going to click on Supabase. Now, one of the powerful things about Supabase is the fact that we can use it for databases. And I'll explain what that means in a minute, but it means we can give it like 1,000 rows or 1,000 pieces of data, and we can ask it relational questions like what are the trends in churn or what are the trends in growth and all this sort of cool stuff. So we're going to go down for a vector store with Supabase. So let's have a quick look. Click on Supabase Vector Store. I'm going to click on Add Documents to a Vector Store. Now, this is your first time doing it. You need to follow these exact things. You need to click on Docs. Okay, you're going to scroll down and you're going to click on Quick Start for setting up a vector store. So guys, what we're going to do is we're going to over to the SQL editor and we're just going to paste in that information and then you're going to click on Run. And what that will do is basically create your database for you. And if it comes back with success, no rows returned, that is code for really cool freaking news. Now, we come over to N8N and you have your Supabase vector store, okay? So if we click on this guy, which is cool, you're going to need to create a new credential. So to do that, you'll click on this here, you'll click on Create New Credential, and it'll ask for a host and a service role secret. What on earth does that mean? Well, we head back over to the beautiful Supabase over here. We are then going to go over and make sure I'm in the right one here. So we're going to go for coffee, I think is the one we want. Okay, beautiful. Now come down to project settings and you'll have a project ID. So on this credential thing, guys, I want you to come down and name it your thing. So I'm going to call this one Coffee Connection, okay? Now you'll have host. It's literally like this, but you're going to get this information here. You are going to remove that and you're going to look for, if you can see right here, we've got dot. Let me remove this down. Beautiful. We're looking for our unique identifier, which for us is this in the extreme. So if you go to your URL, it'll be project / a big code / settings. So you come back over and you basically put that in there and you're good to go. Then you need your service role secret. And to do that, we're going to find this in the settings. It will be in API keys on the left-hand side and you'll see service role secret. Just reveal and copy that. And so for me, I come back, I paste this in here and I click on save and it should come back green. Green is good. We like this. Cool. And that's basically it. Then if I click on table name, it should load up. And as you can see, we've got documents and RPC/documents. And so we're just going to click on documents for this, embedding batch size 200. Don't worry about it. Now, we're going to come down here to embeddings. We're going to use OpenAI's model on this one real quick. So we come down here. Let's just go for here. Text embedding too small is fine. And then we click on document. Document's going to be default data loader. Now, because we're doing text, we're going to be using JSON, which is fine. Now, instead of simple, we're going to do custom. And so we're going to get a little bit more detail there. And a text splitter, this is basically how you want it to be split out. Now, because it's a video that's building points over time, I'm going to go for a chunk size of 2000 with a chunk overlap of 400. So lots of really interesting stuff happening in there. And then we're going to click off this and be okay. Now, what we're going to do is simply hit one button and vectorize it. So I'm going to execute the workflow real quick. It's now working in the background. It's now uploading all the data, which is really cool. And as we can see, it's pipping, it's popping, it's having a good time. And it has successfully created 431 items. So if I come back over to the tables now, we have one table. So we can come down here to table editor and let's have a quick look and refresh. I believe we go down through to database actually. And we have documents. We can open up the documents. And then once this loads, we're able to see all of the information. So we have all the content, all of the metadata, which we're going to come on to shortly about what we do with that and what that looks like. But you can see we've got the content, loads of information and text all the way through. And it goes all the way down like this, which is really cool. Now, the second thing we're going to RAG is going to be websites and also RSS feeds. And you're thinking, what does that mean? Well, basically, a key thing for us to be able to do is to scrape any information from any website. So I'm going to show you the easiest way to do this in the world. First of all, we're going to trigger the scenario with a click, not click up, although that is great project management software, trigger manually, cool. And what we can do really easily is come down and have HTTP request. Phenomenal. And then we can say get and give it any URL we want to. So for example, I've got this random page here on Wikipedia about coffee because as you know, guys, without our coffee, what are we actually? So you come back over here and you click on the URL and very simply hit execute step. And this will do is bring down all of the information from the entire website. And then what we can do is just convert this from HTML to text. Now, N8N has a beautiful node for this. You just type in HTML and this S for superhero appears. So click on extract HTML content and we have all this cool stuff here. So JSON property is data. It's just referring to the name of this. The key CSS selector, you can type in body. I think that is good. And I believe this will just work for us actually. If I just click on execute step and just like that, we have all the stuff without the internet gobbledygook. And obviously once we've done that, we can just vectorize it in the exact same way that we did with our last scenario, which we don't have, which is one thing. Now, how do you take this a level further? So we can then pretty much get any website you want to, input it with anything, extract the text, and just like we did with YouTube automation, just kind of like completely vectorize it. And guys, I just brought in the YouTube thing, and obviously you can then just connect these things together and just replicate the process. And eventually you have them all connecting as part of one mega system effectively. So this is really cool and helpful now for doing websites. But let's say, for example, then what we wanted to do was do something on an RSS feed, which is like, Jack, that's great. But anytime that you do a video or anytime someone writes an article, I want to vectorize that. So how on earth would we do that? Well, to do this, we would use something very cool called really simple syndication, which is cool. It always makes me laugh when someone's got to say it's really simple. So RSS.app is freaking so cool. So you can look on this page, big blue with some yellow stuff. You're gonna go ahead and click on log in or sign up. Now what RSS will let you do, guys, is basically generate a feed for anything. So you can type in any name you want to, like Elon Musk, for example. If I click on generate feed, effectively what we can do here is track anything. Could be Twitter, could be Instagram, YouTube. Anytime there's any content on any topic, we can actually get an automatic update the second that that happens. And on RSS, obviously, you can get any feeds for anything. So if I come over to N8N, for example, and I show you what we can do here, we can click on this. We can click on RSS, click on RSS feed trigger. And effectively what it will do is anytime any articles created on that topic or that created like posts, this will trigger. So if I come over here, for instance, and let's execute this workflow, which is triggered up to the N8N thing, what it does is pull down the information. So the second it's updated, it grabs it, and just in exactly the same way the websites, we can then go ahead and trigger it. This is particularly good, guys. And if you, an RSS.app, you can actually create bundles, and bundles could be where you add separate creators, like I like this YouTuber, this YouTuber, this YouTuber, this YouTuber. And the second that any of them post or create a video, we can grab that and just like previously download the transcripts and build this out into something absolutely incredible. But obviously with RSS feeds, you can do across any social media platform like X. You can even have anytime the words Bitcoin is mentioned online, I want you to grab the article. And I don't want you to include certain terms and other terms. You can customize that. You get a complete free trial on RSS. If you want to go ahead, try that out and kick some ass with it. Beautiful. So we've done YouTube. We've done articles. Next, we're doing the big and beautiful emails. How freaking cool is that? So this can be done from Gmail. It can be done from Outlook. So let's have a Gmail trigger. Now, if you've not connected Google to N8N, I'm going to put a link on screen for you to follow that. It takes about 3 minutes. Go click those buttons. And once you're done, I'll be waiting for you when you come back. All right, welcome back. Hope you got the coffee. Let's do Gmail. So first thing I want to do is on triggers. So the way that I like to do this essentially is, hey, anytime I get a message, fire off. So let's have a look at Gmail. So if I come down here and execute the workflow real quick. Okay, so first a test event. I've got one from Airtable, it's called. You can do simplify or complicated. I recommend that you do basically non-simplification. And we come down on pin and test. All right, and then we've got way more data, which is really cool. Now, the way we want to do this basically is extract out the core information that we think is really important. So the first thing we want to do is get a set node real quick, which is this. And then we're going to bring over the data, right? So we're going to grab over what would be relevant to us. I guess we would have something like sender would be number one. So who it's from. So this is from no reply Airtable. Very cool. We want to have the subject. Let's come down here. Beautiful. We probably want to get the date as well, right? So let's get the date that it was sent. And as you can see, it was sent on Monday, the 29th of September, which is cool. So get the date it was sent on. And then finally, most likely, probably just the actual message itself, right? And we type in body, we should get that. We don't want the HTML there. We want the full non-HTML version, which we can get under text here. Cool. And then we'll just have here body. Cool. All right, sweet. So we've got this information. I'm going to pin this so we can use it. And I'm also going to execute this real quick. And then we've got the data. So the way that we would do this is we can vectorize the information, but then we want to store that other information, like who it's from and all that other key things, as metadata. You're thinking, damn, Jack, what is this metadata? Metadata is just basically data about data. So when we ask it questions in the future, we have like the actual text, but it provides useful context. Like, well, when did this data come into being? Like, it just helps make better decisions. Like, a conversation that you and I have, fresh-faced, ready to kick some butt at 10 a.m. on Monday morning, drinking our beautiful coffee, is probably more like worthwhile data than when we're drinking Guinness at 2 a.m., right? So it's all subject to actual information about the data. So what we're going to do here, very simply, is just simply vectorize this. So again, Supabase vector store. Okay, come down here. I'm going to go down for, I believe we need the vectorization model here, right? So let's have a look. Supabase vector store. We're going to click on add documents to a vector store. And effectively now we can add in metadata. I'm going to show you exactly how you do that. So it's the same thing. We pick the table name that we've got. Let me just make sure that I've got the right credential. And what did we call this one? We called it coffee, I believe, didn't we? There we go. Coffee connection. Great. Table name should then appear. We want the documents for this one, which is cool. Embedding batch size. Don't worry about that just yet. It's just basically how much do you want it to do in one go. Cool. Now we've got this done. Let's actually then add in the embeddings. Once again, embeddings is going to be OpenAI, phenomenal. Come down. Very, very, very cool. Beautiful. And then we click on documents. Default data loader, and then we've got JSON because we're giving it text. Text splitting can be simple. That's absolutely fine. Now, in this default data loader is when we're going to add in the metadata. Okay, so add options, click on metadata, and then we can basically specify any fields we want to. So for example, this one is going to be the sender who sent it to us. Cool. Then we're going to go down. I'm going to have the date. That would be cool as well, right? Grab that date and anything you want to. Realistically, it's really freaking cool like this. And then we've got the actual body. We don't need to add that in because obviously that's not metadata. But we've got subject, date. We probably just want the subject of the email. Cool. Come down and then that's great. And then you can add any other information you want to. You can also add unique identifiers or whatever you want to. And I'll tell you in a second, but you can add an AI model to analyze this stuff ahead of a set node to create it. So you could say, for example, I'll even show you this, right? So if I add in like an AI agent, as a quick for instance, I could say to it something like, define this below. I come down and let's just say that I grab like the text here, come down and we have the key information, the text, sweet. I could give it a prompt like this, which will say something like, you'll get a message. I would like you to give it a category from the below, and that could be anything like admin, update, customer query, anything you want to. You could even do a segmentation agent if you want to, that's better. But I'm just showing this as an example. General opportunity, give me one word reply only, okay? Then you could actually execute this step. This is just to show you what it can do. Okay, we need to give it a little model, so let's just give this a chat model very quickly. Give him OpenAI, beautiful. And if I just unlink and execute this guy, you'll see he's now given us update. So then we can add that to the metadata and then that would then go in and work for us. So that's how you can get AI to actually create for you custom bespoke stuff. So if you want AI to do any analysis, we can just add that module in, get into the analysis, and it was kicks and butt. So this is all cool and good. So we click down here and let's actually give this guy a little bit of, I think that's actually cool, text split and simple. Because it's an email, I want it to be slightly longer so we can get better basic context, because most emails, typically speaking, are going to only be under 1,000 characters, but I just want to actually make sure that we have that. So what I'm actually going to do is add in a recursive character text splitter, and I'm going to make the chunk size, I'm going to make it slightly higher, 2,500. I'm going to make my chunk overlap like probably around 500. Now guys, what we need to make sure that we give this Supabase is one simple text output with the information that we want. So we're actually going to add in a second set node here, and its only job is just the stuff that's going to get vectorized. So we're going to call this one data, and we're literally just going to grab over the body and set it there. And that means that the only thing that's going to get vectorized is that. So if we actually come down now and execute this down here, you'll see it should only vectorize that one simple item. It's added one item. So if we come over to the database and we come over here, you can see that it's been added in, which is basically all the information from the Airtable team. But because we've added in an additional step, we just need to double click onto default data loader, and we need to change this, because when it says JSON.data, it's basically just referring back to the last module and bringing it over. But we're going back 2 modules, a decade away, so far away. So we need to change the information. So look, I click on sender, I bring it over. Awesome. I click on the date. Again, all we're doing is finding the date and bringing it over. Cool. And then we've got name, which is cool. Let's bring this guy over real quick. Let's have a look what we've got here. This one is going to be, okay, we've got date, we've got sender, and then we've got subject, right? Cool. And then come over, and then we're just going to grab in this subject here, okay? Now, when I come over and we execute this, we will see it properly loaded into the database. So if I come over to our coffee thing, you'll see this one here doesn't have it because we didn't specify it. But check this out. It's now reloaded. If I come down here, guys, look at this. We've got the date. We've got the sender. we've got the subject, we've got any other specific information that we like at our fingertips. Now, the cool thing here is that we just set this to run on autopilot. So now every email that we get is going to get vectorized. Now, one other little bonus tip we can do, guys, is actually add in an if node, which is really freaking cool. So what I can say here, for instance, is I can actually say, well, look, if this value, okay, let's just say we have something string contains any keyword I want. So say, for example, if it has something like no reply, okay, let's just say that. And actually, let's not say it's that. Let's just say it is the person emailing us. So let's find out what the individual's email is. I believe they actually do have no reply. If I type in no reply, okay, this is from no reply at airtable.com, right? So what I'm going to say here is, look, I want you to vectorize your stuff, but dude, if it's from no reply, I don't even want to see it. So if I just execute this trigger real quick, it's no reply. So I send it through to false. How freaking cool is that? Which means that the only people that we're going to vectorize emails from is like, we're not going to do anything from a generic email. So this lets us configure this in a really cool way. Now, I'm going to show you a couple more ways we can get this data. Then I'm going to show you how you actually query this in a really cool chat interface. Okay, so to summarize, we've got YouTube, we've got articles, we've got emails. Now, let's take a look at meeting intelligence. This one is really freaking cool. So what I personally use on every single meeting that I do, because again, I give you the stuff that works, the stuff that I personally use and have seen work in my businesses, I use Fireflies. Now, here's the cool thing about Fireflies is that what it will actually do is join every meeting you have, which is really freaking cool, and as just like a participator in the meeting. And then it will just take the entire transcript. The second that meeting's done, it sends you a summary of what you talked about, which is great. And then you can come in and have a look at your meetings and all the stuff that you want to do, like this YouTube masterclass I did, whatever, which is freaking awesome. But what I personally want to do is take all these meetings and I want them auto-vectorized, which means that like, what if I had this chat here with Dustin or YouTube masterclass, whatever it is, and I want to ask questions about that meeting? How would I actually physically do that? And so the way that this system works, guys, is really freaking cool. So we have a trigger where it runs periodically to go ahead and grab our information from Fireflies, because Fireflies actually stores 100% of the transcripts. We then have this request here that basically goes down, we give it an API key, and we're querying for a certain number of transcripts from that. And if you give your Fireflies account real quick. Now, to find your Fireflies API key, come over to their website, click on integrations, and then you're going to look for Fireflies API. Actually, I think I've got it here connected actually already. So if you click on Fireflies API, then click on edit, and then you can click on get API key, or if you don't have it, you just basically create it. And then your anything scenario, in this, basically this blueprint here, you just enter in your bearer API key and you can specify loads of stuff like how many files, how many conversations you want to bring down. Then we use this code module here, which is going to break down the transcript for us and put it into one simple output. We've got this one here that is then going to go ahead and actually grab all the transcripts for us, which is really freaking cool. Then what we do is we create a Google document with that entire transcript on it. And then we upload it to Google Drive. And once we've got that, then we can actually take that information once we've downloaded it and then put it into a vectorization store, effectively meaning that any meeting that we ever have with anybody, we can vectorize that entire process. I've done a full video breaking down specifically this transcript thing and how you can configure it for anything you want to. I'll put a link on screen as well so you can double click into this. But at the moment, we've got meetings, we've got emails, we've got articles, and also YouTube. Now let's take a look at books. So there's a couple ways you can do this. I showed you the form at the beginning of the video. We can just upload things. But a really cool one, guys, is actually kicking it off with Google Drive. So if we come down here to triggers and then click on changes involving a specific folder, which is cool. So we are going to go ahead and basically pick a specific folder. And I'm going to select an account that does have access to Google Drive. Okay, cool. In fact, I say I had photos of Jack, and then I said I want you to watch for when a file is created, which is really cool. And then let's say I go over to that drive, and I've got the drive here, and let's just say I upload one of Alex Hormoz's books. So I'm just uploading the $100 million models. I come back over to our anything scenario, and then what I can do here is essentially we're going to find this, and then we're going to download it. So if I execute this workflow real quick, and it's waiting for the thing, as you can see, it has successfully identified that we have uploaded a really cool book. So what we want to do is just download the data. So we click on this, click on Google Drive real quick, beautiful, and then we're going to click on download. So we need to download the file to then put it into our vector store, right? So what we need to do instead of from list is go by ID. And then here, we're going to just quickly search for ID, phenomenal. And the ID we're looking for is this one right here, bam. Perfect, cool. Then I'm going to pin this data, so we need to keep reactivating it. I'm going to execute this one more time. All right, beautiful. It's downloading the file for us, which is fantastic. And it has done it successfully. So let's have a look at the file. $100 million models, Alex Hormozi, cool. Then all we do, guys, we connect it. We click on this guy. And then instead of, crucially here, tag, JSON, we change this to binary, which is cool. We don't have any of this metadata, so I'm just going to remove it. And then basically, if I just pin this data and I run this one more time, it will then start to vectorize the entire Hormozi database for us. So then we can ask any question we want to about it. And we can validate that very quickly by coming over here. And if I refresh this column, we should start to see things flow in from Alex's book, which should be arriving anytime now. And there we go. Look at this. Okay, so we've got here, we click on this, think about it this way, blah, 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 lots of stuff. And what it's done automatically is gotten some interesting data pre-built in. So it's already telling us the title, the author, the creator, modified date, blah, 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 all this other kind of key data. So we could ask it questions, which is very freaking cool. So then the question is, well, Jack, that's great, but how do I actually then go ahead and query this? Well, let me add a barrier to this. Okay, I've added a little color code because we are nothing without our organization, right? So we come down here. Cool, so let's say then we wanted to query this. Well, let's add in a chat window because we want to have a conversation with our data. So let's say it come down to a chat trigger, which is, where is it gone right now? On a chat message. Cool. We're going to add in an AI agent as a, for instance. Beautiful, fantastic. And it is going to be prompted by the prompt. Very, very cool. All right. So let's give a OpenAI brain very quickly. Okay, very, very cool. Memory. Yeah, let's give it a very simple memory. But in fact, you know, guys, I'm going to show you something really cool. This, when we talk about memory, it's one thing because this memory is loaded in the window. But what if we had an organization where we had 1,000 people using this system? That would be interesting, right? But then what if we wanted the RAG system to be aware of who the individual was who was asking the questions? What we would probably want to do is actually save their data and their information in our database itself, which we can actually do with something called Postgres. And I'm going to show you that in a second once I've shown you how this works. So I'm going to give it a simple memory for a second, and then I'm going to show you how we can actually store all the conversations and questions, which is really cool. So let's say we have a simple memory here with 40 context window, which means 40 interactions. I can add a tool, and all I'm going to do, as you might have guessed, is Supabase, vector store. And you know I told you we had Pinecone? We can also add Pinecone here, so we can reach over and grab and interact with multiple different ones. So I've got here, which is Supabase vector store, which is cool. And I'm going to say, hey, this gives you access to Hormozi's books, and just put vector store. Beautiful. Now, what is really cool here is we just take the table name, which is cool. Let me just get the right credential, which is our coffee connection. Table name, let's have a look at this one, is going to be documents. Limit is how many things do you want me to bring back. I'm going to touch you on this re-rank results soon and why that's really freaking cool. And then we're going to be good. All right, cool, sweet. So we come here and let's go for the embedding. And once again, the embedding is going to be the same embedding we've always been using at the moment, which is text embedding 3 small. Cool. Now we've got this. Effectively, we're just going to give this a quick system prompt, which basically says something like help assistant, query the database when asked. Beautiful. All right, let's ask it a question. Now we're going to ask it a question about the Hormozi money models. So for example, give me an example of a Hormozi money model, okay? Bam, we send that one off. The agent's now working, it's checking chat memory, it's checking Supabase, it's getting the information, and let's see if it gives us information from that. Let's have a quick look. All right, look at this. Look how crazy this is, guys. It's actually called the thing, and you can see now what it's done. And by the way, we can make this whole RAG system, like I'm telling you right now, 1,000 times better than this. I'm just giving you it piece by piece so you can build it sequentially because I don't want to overwhelm you with it, okay? Look, simple meaning. This is what it said. Give me the model, system message, formatting instructions. Now you can tell what it queried it with. Hormozi money model example. And then this is the information it got back. It got back 9 different responses that from the 9 different sections. So basically what it did is it went over here and just pulled back 9 different things and brought them back over, which is really freaking crazy. And that is how you actually get that stuff. That's how it's searching it for us perfectly. Now, what I want to do next is add in a bit of a stronger memory, which is a little bit of a level above this, so you can understand what's going on. So what we're going to do is actually get rid of the simple memory. I'm going to come over here, and we're going to add in this guy, which is Postgres chat memory, which is really, really, really freaking cool. So remember, the reason we're doing this is because it's way more scalable, and it's also searchable. In other words, we can actually search the conversation history. So we've got Mr. Elephant. The question is, how do we actually bump him up? Well, look, you open up, come down to, let me show you here, create new credential, and you see this information. Do not be intimidated by it. Come over here. I want you to come over to connect on Supabase. You're going to scroll down, which is cool. The type is going to be PSQL. you're going to come down to the bottom guy and you click on view parameters. And all we're going to do is the classic copy and paste. So we've got the host, we come back over here to the host. Bam. Then we've got database and user. Cool. Well, the database is Postgres. Is that Postgres? It is awesome. And the user is Postgres, but here it's something slightly different. So we come over and basically all you're going to do is just bring this stuff over. And then we've got the port, which is 5432, but this one is also 5432. But it's asking for a password. I don't know about you. I don't really know what the password was. So come over to database settings. I click on reset database password real quick, ask it to generate a password for us, copy it, come back over here. And all I'm going to do is come down here to password, enter that in, and then click save. And it says it can't connect those settings. Don't worry about that for the moment, okay? Come off here. Now, we've got the JSON ID, which is fine. It gives you a red error simply because it hasn't used it before, but don't worry about that at the moment, okay? Now, I'm going to come down here. And so, for example, guys, once you've added those details in, you can just say something like Hormozy money models, and it'll break down everything in detail. But crucially, it's used as Postgres chat memory. So what does that mean? Well, if I show you now, guys, and I come over here to our database, we should then be able to see this Postgres chat memory that's been added in. So let's take a quick look over here on project overview. And guys, if you actually open up table editor, you can see we now have these two things. One is documents and one is NA10 chat history, which means that anytime you ask a question, it's actually going to be there. And you can see the message in detail. So you can actually have a look at everything that was said by the AI and what was asked as a question, meaning that you have now something that's scalable. You can search it. You can see what conversations we're having and you can improve it, which is freaking unbelievable. Now, next, I'm going to show you how do you get a relational database. So what if we have lots of information and we have a big CSV file and we want to ask it questions? Well, what I'm going to do here, guys, is actually show you this. So let's go over to Claude and generate a fake CSV for the purposes of this, because it's quite different than traditional RAG. Now, I have to explain why you can't RAG a database. Say, for example, we have, 500 rows at the top, which is a lot of data, and 1,000 rows down below. Or let's say 50 rows and 1,000 rows down below. You can't RAG it, because if I was to RAG like 7 rows and 7 rows and 7 rows, you lose context. Like, let's say we have different fields like location and price, and you want the ability to have the full context of the actual database. So we cannot use traditional RAG. Instead, we create a database, and fundamentally what we do is we query the database. So let me show you exactly what I mean when I say that. But first, we need to create a data set to show what this looks like. So let's head over to Claude. And I'm going to say something like, hey, create me a CSV fake file with lots of dummy data and an ID. Bam. Something crazy. We'll get the CSV. We're going to download that, and then we're going to add it in. Now, I'm going to show you something really freaking cool with databases that you've probably not seen before and not seen anyone talk about, despite the fact it's probably one of the most important things you could possibly do. So I've got this crazy CSV file. We've got loads of names. We've got people from different locations, and then we're going to throw this into Supabase. Man, that coffee is freaking delicious. Okay, so we've got this stuff. What we need to do is actually save this real quick. So we're going to create a brand new table of this data. You're going to come on the left-hand side. You're going to come down to database on the left, and then click on tables. Then you're going to click on add a new table. I'm going to call this one something like Jack with a load of Ks. And description is our key people data. All right, something like that. Yes, that's fine. And what we can do is basically identify the columns or just import the data from CSV, which is exactly what we're going to do. So we click on this button, and then we just upload the data, which is awesome. And automatically that has populated the 20 individuals. And then we click on save, which is cool. So this is really cool. And then we've got everything there. And then just click on save. And then we have a brand new database that exists and is really cool. Whilst that's doing that, you're going to come back over now to NA10. We're going to grab an AI agent, which is cool. I have this guy here triggered by that. Once again, we're going to give him a cool model. So let's just duplicate this guy real quick and bring him up. Obviously, you could just connect it and drag it over, but I don't know. I like the aesthetics of keeping it separate. Now, what we're going to do here, guys, is give it a tool. Now, the tool we're going to grab here, guys, is going to come down here. We're going to go for Postgres. Let's see if we can find the Postgres tool. Beautiful. Now, let's get the credential that we've been using here, which is going to be my beautiful coffee credential, which we keep continuing to lose. Actually, no, we created credential 8. My apologies. Cool. And then we're going to have a look at tool description set automatically. Schema is public. That is the one that we want realistically. And then we got the table from the list. And can you believe it? Jack has appeared. I like it. Now, the operation that we want here is going to be select, which is to select rows from table and just leave everything else as it is. Come over here, come to the agent and just give him this prompt, guys, which is system, not this guy. Max iterations, we don't need that. Given this prompt, which is answer user question by generating safe, read-only SQL and returning results. You must use the SQL database when querying it. So does this work? Well, why don't we ask it a question that it should only know? So if we're actually over here, we can click this, click in view in table editor, and we've got information, right? So let's just say, for example, I want to ask what department is Joseph Lewis in, right? And if it works, it should be able to tell us engineering. So let's go over to N10 and ask the question, open chat, and we're going to refresh this. I'm going to say something like, what department is Joseph Lewis in? Let's have a look. It's now checking the database. Let's have a look. Joseph Lewis is in the engineering department. Is that true? Well, let's have a look. It is. So what I want to know, guys, is can it actually extract information relationally? Can it, for example, find all the average salary? So we've got 50 records here. So I've just asked this model, very simply, what is the average salary in the business? So I'm going to come back over here, and we've got all the salaries. So if we did a quick search of these and we added them all up, let's say we get the entire list. In fact, I'm going to ChatGPT and calculate what the answer is. Now, what's really freaking cool here, guys, is not only has it given me the answer, but it's also done it for active employees. So if I said, hey, do it for all employees, active or no, you can see that not only is it giving us the answer, but what actually it's doing is using the context of the entire database. It knows, for example, in the database that we've got, if I come over to our beautiful scenario here, that we've got the city, we've got the country, we've got the hire date, we've got the salary, we've got whether they're even working with us actively at the moment or not. And then it's literally come back, guys, with a full detailed list for any question that you want to. Now, one really interesting thing I want to be able to do now is actually add information. So check this out. You can actually come here. Let me bring this chat window down, grab this guy and duplicate, bring it over here. Now, let's say, for example, I wanted to add a record to it and we're having a conversation like, oh, I need you to update something. What we can do instead of operation, we can insert or update. Let's say I wanted to insert a row, okay? And then we've got all this information. What we can do is let the AI literally specify everything. How freaking cool is that? And we can also get it to update and do anything you want to just by clicking the operation and picking the one. Do you want it to delete something? Do you want it to run a query? Do you want it to do anything else? You could run a query that says, reduce the average salary by 10%. You could do literally anything with this stuff. So say, for example, now I want to chat. I could say, hey, I would like you to add me in another row into the database, put their main city as Dubai and put their salary as $125,000 and randomize all the other information. For example, okay? I'm just showing you the capabilities of what you can do here. So the model's doing its work. The agent's working in the background. What we'll see now is the insert rows and table and Postgres module starts to kick in. And just like that, guys, it's inserted a row. So let's see if this has worked properly. Let's see what the chat winner's come back and said. I've added a new row. Okay, so let's go over and just see what we've got here. So we should see a 51st row. So let's just refresh the table and take a look at what we've got there. Liam Roberts, IT, $125,000, city, Dubai. Guys, just like that, we can now edit this database query and ask it any questions that you want to. This is the level 10 secretary. Let me show you exactly what I mean, because this is the best illustration I could think of to show you how important this is. So do you remember before that we have over here, say, for example, you, okay? And you're the person who's giving the data, right? And then we have this beautiful assistant here who's helping us out, right? And the idea here is that the assistant takes the data and they go over to our big and beautiful filing cabinet and they just basically store the information away. But imagine if we had a secretary that didn't speak English. We had a secretary that didn't really know what they were doing. They were disorganized. They were just like a low-level secretary. And what the point I make to here is we call this here, in this instance, this assistant is the embedding model. And the embedding model is just quite simply the process of taking the data and creating an embedding or creating a big long code basically. And there are different levels that this embedding model can be at. And what my point here is that most people that you follow, or not all of them because some are good, but a lot of times people never talk about the embedding model. When actually I want you to think of this as the difference between having a level 1 assistant and a level 10 assistant, one that is just the absolute best possible. So think about this as who do you want to organize the data in our big filing cabinet? The better they are, the more structured they are, the more powerful they are, the actual better that your RAG database queries are going to be. So it's the ability of the organization, and not only organization, guys, crucially, the ability to search. So we can talk about a lot of specifics like graph RAG. We can talk about so many different types of retrieval augmented generation. But the actual vectorization of it is probably one of the most important things that you could possibly imagine. No, probably about it actually. It's one of the most overlooked aspects of it. And it is really, really, really freaking important. So we call this the level 10 secretary of a level 10 system. And this is our second Infinity Stone principle, which is vectorization. And it is so important. Now, it makes a huge difference. There are even, believe it or not, leaderboards of this stuff. I'm actually not joking. Check it out. Let me show you what I mean. So I've loaded this page up here. These are literally like the world championships for vectorization. That's how freaking nerdy this thing gets, okay? It is crazy. And the idea here is that they have these different benchmarks about how good the models are. And what's really cool is they have different specialities. So for example, you have this one here, which is 7th, which is multilingual, which is really good at getting stuff. And this 0 shot, by the way, is how good is it just grabbing the thing. And you can see all these different density and embeddings. Now, what most people use is OpenAI, right? So let's see if we can even find OpenAI here. Are they even on the list? I can't even find them on here, right? If I just go for OpenAI and literally I'm searching this, I can't see them anywhere. Actually, maybe I can just find them here. OpenAI, let's have a look. OpenAI, no. Okay, text embedding 3 small is 17th. It's got NA on 0 shot. This is crazy. This is what most people are using. And what I'm going to show you here is how we can actually use something that is in the top 7, top 5, top 10. And what we're going to be using here is multilingual E5 instruct. So instead of a level 1 assistant, we're actually going to use a level 10. That's the kind of difference we're going to get there. So I'm going to show you exactly how we do this together. So to do this, we're going to do what? Well, we're going to add an NA10 form so I can show you what that looks like. Just add a quick form in here real quick to generate a thing. Let me just come down and build this one up on a new event and add some information in. Okay, cool. Now to do this, we're going to use Pinecone vector embeddings. Okay, so I'm going to come down here and show you this. So we're going to Pinecone vector store, and we're going to come down here to add documents to vector store. Now, we need to actually head over to Pinecone. All right, let's head over to Pinecone and do this. And the reason we're using Pinecone instead of Supabase here is when I went and did the research on this, I actually couldn't get Supabase to register with a more powerful model because of the misalignment with like the databases there. It just wouldn't support a stronger embedding model on Supabase when I was playing around with it. So which is why I came back to Pinecone for this. So let's sign into this Pinecone very quickly. Okay, so we are logged into Pinecone. What I'm going to do, guys, as hard as this is, I'm going to delete this thing here. Get it out of here. So planet is going by. Now, the reason for this is when we create the index, we actually establish what this embedding model is. So index has been terminated. Thank you. Come down to create index. Now, what are we going to do? Now, I want you to come and select this guy here, multilingual E5 large, which is the 7th best on the entire leaderboard, which is freaking cool. We're going to call this one here Big Boy. Big Boy with an I, which is cool. And then we've got all the key information here, which is very, very decent. Come down, serverless fine, create index. Fantastic. All right, now we've got Big Boy. He's having a good time. We're going to come back over now to our N8N scenario. Now, embedding. This is where it gets very interesting. Click on embeddings, Hugging Face interface, and we need to give it the model name. And what I've done, guys, I actually put these different squares over to make it easier to have a look at. So we've got Pinecone Vector Store. Let me just bring and make sure we've got the Big Boy selected, which is cool. Now, the model I want to pick is this intfloat /multilingual, but again, I'll put this down below so you can have a look at it and kick some butt with it. E5 large instruct. That's basically it. But what we've got to do, basically, in order to do this, is connect it to Hugging Face. So let me show you exactly how you do this. You come over to huggingface.com, and we're going to come over here to, oh my goodness, let me come in and create an account very quickly. We need to get an API section. So come down to access tokens. We're going to sign in very quickly, and then we're going to use this access token to do it. So create a new token, and then basically give it a name, call it Big Boy, and then we can give it access to all the repositories, come down here, and then we just select everything we want it to have a look at. Then, once you've then created the token, you copy it, you come back over to a beautiful scenario, and then you just simply connect it and you're ready to rock and roll. So let's give this a specific example. It's going to come down here to on-form submission 1. So let's do this and upload a book. So we've got it here. We're going to add a file. Cool. And I've given it the Money Models book from Hormozy. We click on submit, and that is excellent. So we then come back over here, and as you can see, there is now being vectorized in our beautiful model, which is really freaking cool. Beautiful, and that is complete. So let's head over to Big Boy, and we'll refresh this guy to see what we've got. And this has brought back everything for us. Cool little tweak, by the way, you can mess around with in Pinecone is you can actually search yourself by clicking on the text field. So Pinecone database is loading up, doing its beautiful Pinecone related thing. I've got my beautiful iced latte, kicking some butt, spilling it all over the place. Cool. So what effectively have we done now? We vectorized it with this bigger model. Now, what this means for us is that equally, don't worry about this free ranker for a second. I'll come on to that shortly. But when we're asking it questions, right, we've got this chat interface. What we can realistically do here, and we have the RAG memory, is once again, you just have the exact same thing. We copy and paste it, bring it over with the exact same Pinecone thing that we did last time. And as you can see now on Pinecone, we have all of the information. We have down here all the text, which is awesome. And I will tell you guys that my personal experience using this thing is freaking insane. Like, genuinely speaking, the quality that I get is outrageous. Like, and barely anyone does it. It's unbelievable. And despite that, it's like the most powerful thing that you can do by changing this vectorization model. It's insane. So let's give it a new prompt and I can show you how this works. Add another trigger. We're going to come down here to on chat message, and then we're just literally going to query this database together. Come down here, beautiful, and then we can actually, and then I'm going to ask it a question here. What is the most powerful money model? And again, it'll go ahead now and check its vector database to see exactly what it can tell us. And you can see that all the things it's asking here now, it's literally multiple different questions being posited there. We're getting all the responses back and back. Just like this. And I will tell you from my experience when I was preparing for the NA10 like AI agent RAG competition, I spent a lot of time with this model and it is way, way, way more powerful than the Open Embeddings 3. Now, vectorization is really powerful, but if you don't understand this third principle, you're leaving so much performance on the table. And I want to call this out by highlighting that we have three things here. First of all, we have our CEO, and she's asking questions about the data, the information, the filing cabinet. We have our assistant who goes forth and finds the answer. And then we've got the actual filing cabinet itself, right, where all the data and information is stored. But what if this CEO is really bad at explaining the thing that they want? For example, with the money models thing, let's say that I say, hey, what's the best money model? But I don't articulate it in the right way because we know the question you ask is more important than the answer. I can give you the right answer, but if you're not asking the right question, it's pointless. So the idea here is that what if you just aren't asking the model the right kind of question, and there's what you want and there's what you ask for, right? It means that the assistant doesn't really know which piece of data they need because the assistant here is basically trying to interpret what you want. The AI model's thinking about, okay, this is what Jack's asking me, and then is going to search. But if you're not clear and you're asking the right question, it does a bad job of that. So you get bad results. Now, the third principle here is what we call prompting and queries, which is game changing. Now, we have the filing cabinet with the data, okay? And the idea here is that we want to add in two steps. We want to add in a middle management. This is the only time middle management's actually good. And I call this the query rewriter. So the idea here is that we have the boss who's asking the question, and then this query rewriter takes your question and has full context and understanding of what your RAG database is actually about. Common terms, common expressions, information about your business. And it will take your query from a certain type of query and actually rewrite it for the AI model. And this works for a few different reasons. Number one, AIs are 400 IQ interns, right? So the idea here is that if you give it 16 things to do, it will do them really poorly. But if you have a specialized sub-AI agent whose only job is to rewrite your question better, you will get significantly better queries to your RAG database. And the better questions and more specific things that we ask it, the better responses that we get. Which is why this query rewriter is so, so, so important. Now in practice, this is what it looks like. So effectively, all we're doing is adding in a secondary model with this re-ranker. What's really cool about having what we call a parallel tool calls, agentic, is that the agent can actually reach over and query the vector database with a few different queries at the same time, which makes it more highly effective. And we basically tell this agent that it needs to take the user's query, first of all, and then run it through the query re-ranker. You could do, if you wanted to as well, have the chat message, a query re-ranker here, and then go through to the agent. One of the reasons I like having it down below is the agent can ask it questions, listen, and if it needs to then call upon it a second time, it can do, which I think is a huge advantage. Then effectively what happens is the agent calls a query re-ranker. It then asks the questions in a better way, then it consults the RAG memory, then it gives you a better thing. So we're getting way, way, way better consultations over that. Now, this is where it gets even freaking cooler. So look, I'm gonna click on this vector database here. You can also click on this limit's 4. I'm gonna increase the limit here to 20, okay? And what I'm also gonna do is re-rank the results by adding in Cohere's re-ranker. Now, what Cohere does, it's a specific thing. So what we're saying is, I want you now to go to the bookcase, get me 20 bucks, 20 bits of information. And then we've got another model that says, and this is the analogy here, that we have a re-ranker in the middle that sits between the assistant that gets the information and is like, Jack, you've given me like 20 things. I'm going to pick the 4 best of the 20 things. So we get another level of optimization on top of that. And adding this Cohere re-ranker is so simple. It's crazy. It's re-ranker Cohere, and you just make an account on that website by going to re-ranker Cohere, and then you just grab the API key and it's done. And then we re-rank, literally that's it. And then it is ready to rock and roll. So let's ask it a question about the book, right? So if I said something like, what would be the best model for a monthly MRR subscription business? It's a really bad question, but I just want to show you how this kind of works, right? So we've got this question here. The agent's now speaking to the re-ranker, who's giving it some information, and then it's checking the RAG memory database, and it will re-rank the stuff, and then it will give us the answers, which is really cool. So it's just nice that it's done that. You can actually see all the things it's got there. Look, best financial models for monthly recurring revenue, MRR subscription, business revenue forecast, and churn prediction. So you see now how it's taken my crap question, which I made it crap on purpose, and it's actually then transitioned that into something that is probably more relevant, like keywords like MRR, things that you would expect to see and think, look at this, guys, for example, offer sequencing, model subscription, business optimization. It's got loads of things, best financial models. What else has it got on this? Like you can see the quality is continuity, subscription, business. Guys, these are insane. Like you compared these 4 things compared to what I said, it's like speaking, I don't know, like a 2-year-old versus a PhD scholar. It's insane. And then we've had the information back. And then what we can do is check out what result we got. So have a look at this. TLDR, the best money model for monthly recurring, blah, blah, blah. And so now we're getting significantly better results. I cannot emphasize enough how important this is. And it's like no one does it. And so I'm so stoked to share this masterclass because it is so freaking insane. And we've got all the things. We've got examples, numbers that matter, pitfalls and checks. And it's literally insane. And in fact, I'm actually going to pull this up on the system here to show you this because this is really key, a really key detail to understand. And this idea that when we do RAG, okay, effectively, we can do it in a couple of different ways. And I'm oversimplifying this a little bit just to kind of like give you like big results for small inputs, is we can have something on a very local level, okay, which is basically, imagine our librarian example, okay, where we have like a million gazillion different books. We can have it in a way that it will only ever tell us the information in the book. So if I say, is this illegal or is this against our policy? The language model in this instance here will go over to the book, grab the information and quote it back to you. And it won't add any additional information. It won't kind of dilute its core message. Then we have this idea of global. And essentially the idea behind this one is that we do have the book, but in addition to that book, the AI is kind of saying, look, I get that you've got the book, but in addition to that, I also happen to know loads of other pieces of information from several other books. So it will tell you, it will use the knowledge and information you've got about it being illegal based on your source text. But in addition to that, it says, look, I also happen to know, because I'm a freaking AI and I know everything, that there's some additional context that I'm giving to you. So we have these 2 different trains of thought here. One is, I only want to know the specific thing. And the other one is, I want the best answer, whether or not that includes my core data. Now, there's ways that we can actually deliver this in our systems, in our RAG systems, based on what your business needs and what the client needs. Now, how do you do that? Well, one is in the agent itself. When it's querying it, we can actually add metadata filters. Say that like, look, you're actually going to search for certain metadatas, and I only want you to bring back things that are within X date range, or you must quote the specific part. And that gives us some beautiful like kind of configurability and assurances that it's only going to call back and do it, so that we know that when we get the information, we get a specific quote about where that was. So for example, even if I show you now in the Big Boy database, if we have a look at this, right, we've got lots of different metadata on this thing here, right? So we've got the book that it came from, and you've got the lines that are in the book. So essentially, if we're actually adding in metadata about the thing, we can then add these as metadata filters in the scenario to make sure we get something specific. But what's really important is when you're doing the prompting is that you specify whether you want it to be specific or you're happy for it to kind of draw out like the main key point that you're trying to find. And just for an example of that, if you come over to Supabase, you can come down here, we can add in our metadata filters. So you come down to add options, metadata filter, and then you can literally add the fields and the values that you want it to filter by. So it's only going to pull down things that fit in with your metadata. Now, why this is so cool is we can have the AI specify email sender. So do you remember in our Supabase database, and I'll pull this up real quick so you can have a quick look at it, where we vectorized emails, we could say, look, if it's now going to the RAG, it will only be able to go back and search for the specific emails that we gave it, right? So let me come and show you this real quick. Let's come over to our beautiful database. Like in the Jack thing, right? We've got the things here. And also in our document section, we've got all the information that we vectorized, like emails and PDFs and things. So we know that the third most important part of RAG is the prompt. Now, I want to show you exactly why this is so critical so you can leverage it and 10x the quality of it. So we've done the vectorization. We've got a super powerful system. Now what we've got really is the prompt itself. So I've got this RAG master prompt here. Now, what's really crucial, and there's so many different variables based on your specific use case. For example, what we would do is customize this whenever you're building a RAG system. We have you are insert expert role. Your task is to answer the user's question only using retrieved context provided below. And I'm going to show you something about prompting with RAG, guys, that I've never seen anyone mention because I went down very deep rabbit holes for this. So all you simply do, guys, is you go through this and you're going to remove things. So you must act as a domain expert, a data analyst, a research summarizer, an advisor giving recommendations. So for instance, if we were building a chatbot in my name, like a Jack GPT or a Hormozy GPT or a Grant Cardone GPT or whatever it is, you would only want it to act as an advisor. Conversely, if we have, say, a law firm, okay, and they want to buy, or maybe you're a pharmacological consultant, you want it to be explicit about the thing it does. And all you do, guys, is you come down and you basically remove and delete the bits you don't want. Then we have this chain overview thing, which is really critical. So you have access to a specialized query rewriter agent. Now, before retrieving information or generate response, send the original query to the query writer agent. Remember, guys, that is this guy right here, having a rock and roll big and beautiful good time. So bring him down a little bit here. And what I'm going to do as well is just show you here, guys, we're going to add the re-ranker results and we want 20. This is really key. So the query re-ranker that we've got, let me get the coherent here just to show you. Basically 20 results come back from the vector database, and then the query ranker will actually pull the top 3 that it thinks are most relevant. That was our secretary analogy. Then, objective. What do you want it to do? Do you want it to give you the exact information? Do you want a balanced explanation combining the retrieved information with the brief context? Do you want an executive summary? Which do you want? Again, let's say you want D. Well, we would just simply remove, and then we just go down. And then knowledge. Now, this is a really core concept. This idea of, do you want it to be local strict? Again, the analogy here is a librarian, right? And she says, do you want the information only from that book? So I only want it from this book. Only give me information from this book. Or are you saying that, yes, I want you to get me information from the book, but also if there's relevant data information, we call this global. From this book and this book, you can bring that in and synthesize it. If we are supporting a law firm, I've had a law firm client, quite a few of these sort of builds, they'll say, look, Jack, I only really want information from my data, my specific case law, in which case we do what's called local strict, which is quotations and citations only. But if we're okay to paraphrase it, then we do local grounded. But if you want global augmented, in other words, grab me data information from all of them, that's a completely different story, okay? And once again, we emphasize never fabricate citations, and we let the model know that it's okay to say, but it doesn't know. And we also want it to express its confidence. Citations, what are citations? Output format, what do we want it to be? Well, let's just say we may want markdown and concise paragraphs. And then structure, what do you want it to look and feel like as an output? You wouldn't believe the number of scenarios that don't actually specify this, okay? And then we have that. Then we have down here our query re-ranker. Its prompt is a little bit more simple. And I'm going to get nerd out on this topic because this is a really key one that I went deep on here. We give it the role. Now, domain context. So there's a question here on RAG about, let's say, is it more helpful to give our system here context and information about our RAG system or not? And the answer that I landed on from my research is yes and no. No, in the sense that this guy, the main agent, we don't want him to have any information realistically about what our RAG database is about. Isn't that crazy? And one of the reasons for that is because we don't want to pollute. So if we did our data cleansing properly, okay, in this knowledge database, it will have the pure knowledge. Now, if you start to say, oh, by the way, you do this and you answer these kinds of questions and blah, 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 we can start to bias the model's retrieval too much. The query re-ranker, by the way, is slightly different. And again, This is just what I found based on all of my research and what I found working for me. With the query ranter, we add what we call a disambiguation contextual prompt, which is a really fancy way of saying, give me 2 sentences about what your RAG database is about. Now, we do this because, let's say, for example, we trained this RAG system on Alex Hormozzi's books or Harry Potter books, whatever the thing is. You may ask it a question that it could interpret in slightly different ways, but if it has the context of what that RAG database is about, purely for disambiguation purposes only, in other words, we're not biasing its retrieval, it will then be able to get, we think, better responses from it. And then we give it instructions. We read it carefully, write 2 or 3 concise, clear, semantically rich alternatives. Again, semantically rich alternatives is key because, again, we're using those words to go and grab. So if I said something like, how old is Dexter? It may say, Springer Spaniel age, how old is dog, Dexter age, some Dexter years, months. So that's like loads of like, if you can think of a clustering of words like that, semantically would work. Now to show you what this looks like an example, I trained this on, again, Hormozzi's books. Let me come down and ask it a simple question. So I've said, hey, give me an example of a money model. Now look, we've got a core model. I've added a secondary brain. I've got the think module if it wants to think. It's gone through to the re-ranker. So in other words, it's re-ranked the actual questions and then it's searched the RAG database and it's thinking. So I want to show you an example, right? So my input here was, give me an example of a money model. But look at this, examples of money models used in business growth strategies, illustrations of financial models applicable for increasing business revenue, sample money model frameworks, blah, blah, blah. And then down here, guys, we've got an excellent response that covers pretty much everything that we want in the detail and the specifics that I actually gave it. Now, you've most likely heard of the expression graph RAG that's been thrown around, and I want to include it here in the interest of completeness. So if you're not aware what graph RAG is retrieval augmented generation, but effectively we do it in, as you might guess, a graph. And what we effectively do is illustrate the relationships of things to other things. And what it's great at is if you have a big database and you want to be able to ask it questions that's let's say very relational in nature. Let's say you have a corpus of lots of materials and you want to know how certain things relate to other things. Graph RAG is great because kind of like those games, you know, like Bubble.io or whatever, the bigger the bubble, the more things that are connected to it. So let's just say, for example, that this chunk here, document, what the word document would do is connect to everything else that's document. So what it enables you to do basically is find out the relationships to other things. Now, this tutorial is about what you see in 99% of production use cases. And it's a very advanced specific thing. So I'm not including in this video because we're focusing on what is actually driving a lot of the value in real business applications. But I wanted to cover it here just so you have a good understanding of it. We can use tools like LightRag to do that. And if you want a full video breaking down this specifically, just let me know down below in the comments. I'm happy to build that and show it for you. Now, understanding how to build effective RAG systems is one thing, but that is only one part of multiple different skills and systems that you need to learn to generate income from AI and systematize and scale your business. In the community, I've got 6 beautiful chapters that take you from basically AI foundations, which is all the basics you need to know, all the way through to becoming an AI native entrepreneur. And if you want to commercialize, we've got literally step-by-step days and roadmaps that cover all the stuff that I did, how I kind of built and sold my own automation business, how I've generated so much money through my own agency, and I've helped other people do that as well. And then we have business systems, which are lift and shift, automation systems that actually work, that are going to save you time and help you crush your business. I'm going to put a link down below so you can click that and join us. You have direct daily access to me. And one thing I'm really proud about in the community is how wholesome and supportive and how many wins we have in the group. People always crushing it and getting amazing wins in their business, getting their first clients, getting their first 10, 20K a month. I've literally reverse engineered all the success stories to make your pathway from beginner to expert as simple as possible. You can hang out with me every week and chat to me every day, and we will solve 100% of your tech stuff. So I wanted to include that because if you're serious about your AI journey and you want to turn this incredible skill into income, this is the place I built to do it. So if that sounds all interesting and you want to take that to the next level, click the link down below in the description and I'll catch you inside.